Right now, while you are sitting there, your lawn is throwing away roots, not growing them. Throwing them away, letting them die off underground on purpose because it is the wrong time of year to be holding on to them. And come autumn, it will grow a fresh set. Most people have no idea that happens. Most people picture grass roots the way they picture the roots of a tree, as something permanent that sits down there and slowly gets bigger. That is not what grass does at all. And that is just the first of the things I want to go through today because there are about 9 of these, and they are the sort of thing that only the truly obsessed tend to know. I want to be clear about what this video is and is not. This is not a list of jobs. I'm not going to tell you to buy anything or to go out this weekend and do anything in particular. This is 9 things about how grass actually works. And the reason I think it is worth your time is that once you understand what the plant is doing, most of the advice you have heard for years suddenly makes sense. And a fair bit of it turns out to be wrong, including, and I will get to this one, the reason your lawn looks worse right after you cut it. That one drives people crazy. And almost nobody knows the answer. It has nothing to do with your mower, nothing to do with your blade, and nothing to do with your grass being unhealthy. If you like the kind of explanation that tells you why instead of just handing you a list of chores, do me a favor and hit like and subscribe. It genuinely is the only thing that keeps these going. All right. Number 1, and this is the one I opened with. Your grass grows roots seasonally, and it sheds them seasonally. Here is the pattern for most lawns. Roots go on mostly in spring and again in early autumn. Some of the warm season grasses do a lot of their rooting toward the end of spring. And then, through the heat of mid to late summer and again through winter, the plant lets a large share of those roots die off. That is not damage, and it is not a problem. That is the design. Oregon State's turf program describes tall fescue as having, in their words, an annual root system, meaning most of its roots are replaced each year during the spring flush of growth. Replaced every year. So the root mass under your lawn is not a bank balance that only goes up. It is more like a wardrobe. Things get worn out and thrown away, and new things come in on a schedule. Now, here's the part I find genuinely lovely about this, and it is a thing almost no homeowner has ever been told. Those dead roots do not go anywhere. They stay down there in the soil, and they are carbon. The plant pulled carbon dioxide out of the air, built root tissue out of it, and then deposited that tissue underground, where it stays until something digs it up. Researchers measure this. There is a whole body of work on carbon sequestration in turf grass and soil systems, and the rates vary by species and by how the lawn is managed. So your lawn is quietly doing something all year that nobody gives it credit for. Every season, it builds a set of roots out of thin air and then buries them, which leads to the practical bit. And it is the reason people who take this seriously care about the calendar. If root growth mostly happens in spring and early autumn, then the things you do to encourage roots are worth far more in those windows than they are in July. Pushing a lawn hard in the middle of summer is pushing against the plant. Doing the same thing in September is pushing with it. Number 2, why your lawn looks worse right after you mow it. This is the one I promise, and I think it is the single most useful thing in this video for the average person. Here is what you need to picture. Look at one individual grass plant, not the lawn as a whole. One plant. That plant is not a blade. It is a bundle of leaves at different ages. The newest leaves are the tall green ones standing up in the middle. As they age, they get pushed outward and downward, they lose color, and eventually they die and lie over near the soil surface, going tan and white and brown before they break down and become soil again. So underneath the green, you are looking at there is a layer of old dead leaf material. Always. In every lawn, that is normal, and it is not thatch, and it is not a disease. Now, what happens when you let the grass get tall and then scalp it right down? You cut off the green canopy. And what is left standing is that layer of dead, tan, whitish material that was underneath the whole time. That is why your lawn goes dingy the moment you cut it. That is why it looks gray-green and tired for a week and then greens up again as new leaves come through. You did not damage it. You uncovered it. And once you know that, the fix is obvious and it is free. You have two options. Either take the dead material out, which you can do with a thatch rake or a dethatcher or a power rake, or, far easier, stop cutting so low in the first place. If you keep the grass tall on every cut, you never expose that layer, so you never see it. The lawn just looks green all the time, straight after mowing. Number 3, and this one sounds like extra work and is genuinely the opposite. Mowing more often makes mowing easier. People treat mowing as a chore to be minimized, so they stretch it out. 2 weeks, sometimes 3, and then they go out and fight through a jungle with the deck dropped low to buy another week of grace. Here is what actually happens when you mow every few days instead. The cut itself gets easier. You are taking a small amount off the top rather than hacking through heavy growth. The mower is not bogging. The clippings are short enough to fall in and disappear rather than lying in windrows. You have to rake. And more importantly, the plant responds. Every time you cut a grass plant, you are pruning it. And grass responds to pruning the way a hedge does. Cut the top and it puts energy sideways instead of up. It tillers, meaning it sends up new shoots from the crown and the whole stand gets thicker. A denser canopy is not just prettier. It is your weed control. A weed seed needs light on soil to get going. If the canopy is thick enough that no light reaches the ground, most of those seeds never become anything. That is the single most effective weed prevention there is, and it costs nothing. So the person mowing every 3 days is not the crazy one. The person mowing every 3 weeks is doing more work per session, getting a worse cut, and creating openings for weeds while they're at it. Number 4, stop thinking about feeding the grass and start thinking about feeding the soil. This one is a genuine shift in how to look at your yard, and I think it is the most important idea on this list. Most homeowners think about lawn care as one loop. Bag of fertilizer, spread it, grass goes green, repeat. And that works. It does. Nitrogen pushes top growth, and the lawn responds within days. But here is what most common lawn fertilizers do for your soil. Nothing. They are not soil amendments. They are plant food. Some products genuinely do help soil biology, and there are good ones out there. But the typical bag most people buy is feeding the plant, not the ground the plant is standing in. And in some cases, it is actively pushing top growth at the expense of the soil. Now think of it the other way around. If you have good soil, and by that I mean soil with structure, with organic matter in it, with living biology and decent drainage, then everything you put in it does better with less help. Better soil holds water longer, so you water less. It holds nutrients rather than letting them wash straight through, so you fertilize less. It lets roots go deeper, so the plant survives stress you would otherwise have to manage around. I would rather amend soil and feed the biology in the ground than fertilize the plant. And the reason is simple. Fertilizer is a treatment you have to repeat forever. Soil is an asset you build once and keep. Compost top dressing. Organic matter. Aeration if you are compacted. Anything that makes the ground itself better. It is slower and it is far less satisfying because nothing greens up in 4 days. But it compounds and fertilizer never does. Number 5. Watering often is not helping you. It is hurting you. This one catches nearly everybody because it feels wrong. The healthiest lawns get water regularly, but they do not get it frequently. Those are two different things, and the distinction is everything. A little water every day keeps the top inch or two of soil damp all the time. And a grass plant is not stupid. If there is always water at 2 inches, it has no reason at all to send roots to 8 inches. Why would it? It builds what it needs and nothing more. So you end up training a shallow lawn. And a shallow-rooted lawn is a lawn living hand to mouth. The top couple of inches is exactly the layer that dries first, bakes hardest, and gets hottest. So the first proper heat wave, or the first week you go away, and that grass has nothing in reserve. Water deeply and less often, and the picture inverts. Moisture goes down, the soil surface dries between waterings. The roots follow the water down. And here's the number that makes all of this concrete, and it is the best single figure in this video. Michigan State's extension work found that Kentucky bluegrass in a decent loam soil, mowed at 3 inches and watered deeply but infrequently, will often hold roots in the 6 to 8 inch range by early summer. The same grass mowed aggressively low and watered lightly and often drops to 2 to 3 inches or less. Same species, same soil, same yard, potentially. 6 to 8 inches of root, or 2 to 3, depending on nothing more than how you mow and how you water. That is not a small difference. That is the difference between a lawn that shrugs off August and a lawn you spend August rescuing. There is a second benefit to infrequent watering that people rarely mention. Keeping the leaf canopy damp all the time raises humidity down in the turf, and humidity is what fungal disease wants. Letting the surface dry out between waterings lowers disease pressure across the whole season. So, fewer waterings, more water each time. Not less water overall. Number 6. And this one might let you off the hook for something you have been blaming yourself for. Not every dead spot can be saved, and it may not be your fault. Here's the scenario. There is a patch in your lawn that dies out. Every single year. Same time, roughly the same place. So you water it, you fertilize it, you baby it, and it dies anyway. And you conclude you are doing something wrong. You may not be. That spot might be an annual grass. Annual grasses have a life cycle that ends. That is what annual means. They come up, they grow, they set seed, they die. No amount of water and no amount of fertilizer changes that, because dying is not a failure for that plant. It is the plan. Perennial grasses respond to water and feeding. Annuals do not in the same way. And the annuals in most lawns are not there because anybody planted them. Nobody has ever gone into a store and bought crabgrass seed. I have never in my life seen annual bluegrass seed for sale anywhere. They arrived on their own. And annual bluegrass in particular is sneaky because through spring, it looks like a perfectly nice, slightly lighter green patch of lawn. And then summer comes and it goes off and dies and leaves you a hole. So if you have a spot that has died every year for several years running, stop pouring resources into it and go look at it closely. Get down on your knees. Compare the leaf to the grass around it. If it is an annual, the answer is not more water. The answer is to get a perennial grass established there instead. Number 7, you might simply be growing the wrong grass. This is the one that explains the neighbor who does nothing and has a better lawn than you. Grass types are regional. They evolve for particular climates and they have hard limits. Cool season grasses want cool summers and they suffer badly in prolonged heat. Warm season grasses want heat and they go dormant and brown when it is cold. If you are growing a species that is not suited to your climate, then you are not gardening. You are running life support. Every good day is something you paid for, and the moment you stop paying, it slides. And people end up in this position two ways. Some choose it usually because they wanted a particular look or bought whatever bag was on the shelf, but most inherit it. The builder laid sod. A previous owner threw down a cheap contractor mix. Nobody made a decision at all. There is a second layer to this that matters just as much, and it is microclimates. Your yard is not one environment. The strip along the south-facing wall is a different world from the corner under the maple. Deep shade is genuinely a different growing condition, not just a dimmer version of sun. And there are grasses that handle it and grasses that will never manage it no matter what you do. So the fix is not dramatic and it is not a weekend. Work out what genuinely does well in your region and in your specific conditions, and then start overseeding that into what you have. You do not rip anything out. You just keep adding the right thing year after year and let it gradually take over. Give that 3 or 4 seasons and your lawn will look better with substantially less effort because you stopped fighting the climate and started using it. Number 8, for most grasses, put the deck on its highest setting. I mean it. Go out and look at where yours is set because I would bet it is low. Most grass types are at their healthiest and look their best cut tall. Not all. There are genuinely species that want to be short. And if you are running Bermuda or zoysia, the calculus is different. But most lawns are not that. And the reasons stack up. A taller leaf has more surface area collecting light, so the plant makes more food. More food means more root. And we have already seen what root depth buys you. Taller grass shades its own soil, which keeps it cooler and slows evaporation, so you water less. And taller grass shades out weed seeds, which we covered. Now here is the trap. And it is important because this is where people take this advice and get it exactly backwards. Cutting tall does not mean cutting rarely. The temptation is enormous. You raise the deck, the lawn looks fine for longer, so you think you have bought yourself a fortnight. You have not. Grass grows at the rate it grows, regardless of where the deck is set. And there is a rule underneath all of this called the 1/3 rule. Never take more than a third of the leaf in a single cut. Take more than that, and you shock the plant because you have removed the leaf area it uses to feed itself, and it has to spend stored energy to recover. So the goal is tall and often. High deck, regular schedule. That combination is where the good lawns live. If you can resist the urge to scalp it just to skip a week and put the deck up instead, your lawn will be healthier through the year and look better nearly all the time. Number 9, and this is the one that determines whether damage repairs itself or sits there forever. Not all grasses can spread sideways. This is the single most useful thing to know about your particular lawn, and most people have never even heard the distinction. Some grasses spread laterally. Kentucky bluegrass sends out rhizomes, which are underground stems that travel and pop up as new plants. Bermuda runs across the surface with stolons. Zoysia does both. Those grasses are self-repairing. Dig a hole, fill it with soil, and they will creep in from the edges and close it. They knit, and some grasses do not spread at all. They are called bunch-type grasses. Perennial ryegrass and tall fescue are the big ones. They grow in a clump from a central crown, and they thicken by sending up new shoots called tillers. But they do not travel sideways. Tall fescue is technically rhizomatous, but in practice it behaves like a bunch grass with very limited ability to spread. Now think about what that means in your yard. Dog urine spot. Trench dug for a sprinkler line. Patch that died because the irrigation was off for July. Anywhere something got killed. If you have a spreading grass, the lawn fixes that itself. You can genuinely leave it, and it closes. If you have a bunch-type grass, that hole is permanent. There is no mechanism by which it fills. The plants at the edge cannot walk, and a bare patch does not stay bare because weed seed lands there and something will grow. It just will not be what you wanted. So this is the one thing on this list I would actually ask you to go and find out. Work out what your predominant grass is, because it determines whether damage is a temporary annoyance or a job you have to do. If you are bunch type, overseeding is not optional maintenance. It is the only repair mechanism you have. And since I have just asked you to go and identify your grass, let me give you enough to actually do it, because otherwise that is a useless instruction. You do not need a lab. Get down on your knees on a patch of healthy lawn and look at 3 things. First, does it travel? Look at the edge of a bare spot or the seam along a path. If you can see grass creeping out into open ground, running stems across the surface, or shoots popping up in a line away from the parent plant, you have a spreading type. If every plant sits in its own tuft with soil visible between the tufts, you are bunch type. Second, look at the width and feel of the leaf. Tall fescue has a noticeably wide, coarse blade with distinct ridges on the upper surface that you can see with the naked eye, and it feels rough drawn between your fingers. Fine fescues are the opposite, almost needle-like. Kentucky bluegrass is medium and soft. Bermuda is fine, and the lawn feels like a mat. Third, look at the very tip of a leaf. Kentucky bluegrass has a distinctive tip shaped like the front of a boat, which people describe as a boat-shaped or canoe tip. Once you have seen it, you will spot it in 2 seconds forever. And there is a fourth shortcut that costs nothing. Look at what everybody in your area has, and go and ask the one neighbor whose lawn is best. Most people are delighted to be asked, and half of them know exactly what they are growing. All right, that is the 9. Let me pull the thread that runs through all of them because I do not think this is 9 separate facts. I think it is one idea wearing 9 hats. Look at what actually changes outcomes in that list. Mow taller, mow more often, water less frequently and more deeply, improve the soil, grow a species that suits your climate, know whether your grass can repair itself. Now notice what is not on the list. There is no product on it, not one. Nothing you buy, nothing you spray, nothing in a bag. Every single item is a decision about timing, height, and frequency. Things that are free. And I think that is why so much lawn advice is unhelpful. And I am not being cynical here, it is just structural. Nobody can sell you a mowing height. There is no margin in telling somebody to water on Saturday instead of every evening. So the advice that gets amplified is the advice attached to something in a bag, and the advice that would actually fix most lawns quietly goes unsaid. There is a second thread, and it is this. Almost every mistake on that list comes from treating grass as decoration rather than as a plant that is trying to do something. Cutting it short so it looks tidy, when short means shallow roots. Watering a little every day because that feels caring, when it teaches the plant to be lazy. Feeding it because green is proof you did something, while the soil underneath gets no better. Pouring effort into a spot that was always going to die, because that is what annuals do. None of that is laziness. Most of it is people trying hard in the wrong direction, which is far more frustrating than not trying at all. So if you take one thing from this video, take this. Before you do anything to your lawn, ask what the plant is doing right now and whether you are working with it or against it. Spring and autumn, it is building roots. So that is when your effort compounds. Midsummer, it is surviving. So that is when to stay off its back. And all year round, the height you cut it at and the way you water are quietly setting how deep it can root, which determines everything else. 6 to 8 inches or 2 to 3, that was the number. Same grass, same soil. Everything else on this list is downstream of that. Now, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me which of these 9 surprised you most, and tell me if you already know what grass you have, because I suspect a fair few of you do not. And honestly, that is the one I would start with. If this was useful, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more than you would think. And thank you for watching all the way to the end. I will see you in the next one.